What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode with your young guns. We will be talking about something pretty exciting, to be honest. A team on the rise, of course, the Minnesota Wild. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you so much for all the subs we've been getting the last couple of weeks. Again, it's rising, and we're almost at 300. I think not even a week ago we were like saying, thank you so much for hitting 200, and now we're almost about to hit our milestone of 300 subs. So that's fantastic. So we want to take the time to thank all the local support too, all the random people from states, Canada, anywhere who's been subbing to us. It's honestly it's a huge honor that you guys want to listen to our content and stuff. So we're gonna continue doing that, and we have a lot of interesting episodes coming your way with some guests actually uh, after the trade deadline. So just wanted to keep you guys informed about that. But let's get into it essentially. So the Minnesota Wild, there's a lot of things happening on that team, as you can see right there.
Let's
Uh,
go Jersey.
mul- Multiple players are having career seasons. You have John Murrow, who played for the Montreal Canadiens last season, went to the Stanley Cup Finals, signed a 1 year deal with the Minnesota Wild during the offseason, got a 3 year extension. He's playing great. You have
Mhm.
Matt Zuccarello, who's probably been playing the best hockey since his time with the Rangers. Ryan Hartman playing as a number one center. They acquired him a couple years ago as a winger, and now all of a sudden he's playing as a top center. Which we're gonna get into that after about like I still feel like they need to acquire another center, but we're gonna talk about that after. Karil Kaprisov coming off that huge extension, which he deserved because he killed it in his Calder season, in his Calder year. Um, so, again, props to him too. Obviously, the franchise player in that team. And Marcus Foligno, he developed into a fan favorite, and he's putting up great numbers as well. But as a whole, the Minnesota Wild are a very well coached team, and the team uh, as a whole, everyone contributes. Even the guy Rem Pitlick, who they put on waivers, he had like 11 points. And imagine putting a guy like that on waivers. You could see that, the contribution is coming from everywhere, every single line, every single player, and the management as well. And I think it's going to be a very interesting trade deadline for them too. But we're gonna give the reins to Luca right now or Chris to add their input.
Well, I mean, Minnesota, they're a very, like you said at the beginning of the episode, they're a very interesting team, and they're an interesting team because you look at the roster that they have and the roster that they have constructed, and I'm not really a big fan of their forward core for the most part. Like, I mean, I think they've got some elite talent. Kaprizov's there. I think Eriksson X really good. Zuccarello as well, but they don't have that that wow factor on the offensive in the offensive core. Their defense is something that really impressed me. Jonas Brodin's a really good defenseman. Jared Spurgeon, who's been out with injury this season too, he's just recently come back as well, so that's going to be a big boost for them. Like you said, John Merrill's been really good. They've got a few other guys. Matt Dumba's another one that comes to mind and stuff. So Minnesota's got a team that's really good defensively, and they're a team that right now can score goals. Kaprizov's being driving that offense. 47 points. He's top 10 in the league in points. Like you said, Matt Zuccarello again. Probably the best hockey he's played in a long time, and he's helping my fantasy team too, so it helps. Thanks. But I mean, besides that, it's been a good ride for the Minnesota Wild. And what's interesting about them too is if you look at the NHL standings, right, you're going to look at them and say, "Oh, they're in a wild card spot. They're not that good." Well, you're wrong because in the Central Division, they are at 51 points. St. Louis is at 55. Nashville's at 55. The difference is that Minnesota has 6 games in hand on Nashville and 4 games in hand on St. Louis, and they're only 4 points behind both of them. Now, obviously, you have to win those games to, get to those points. But it's very impressive to see what Minnesota's doing. They're one of the most underrated teams in the league. They're one of the most underappreciated teams in the league, and I'm glad we're talking about them because I don't think they get as much love as they should, in my opinion. Chris, what's your thoughts?
Before I start, fun fact: I have three favorite teams. Montreal Canadiens, obviously, the Ducks, but the Minnesota Wilds, I've loved them since I started watching hockey. I think it was just the logo and the jersey was just cool. Uh, but anyways, to get to it, now they're playing a hell of a great season. I'm not gonna take that away from them. Now the problem is because of the ages that I see of these players, will they be able to replicate this next season or the season after that? I strongly don't think so. All right, and they have a team that could go to the playoffs. Now, will they go all the way and pull an underdog story? I hope so. I mean, it would be cool. But they're missing. I think they have they have an up and coming goalie who's gonna be insane, like for the future. Their defense is pretty solid, but it's like some of these guys are pretty old, and when it comes to the forward group, when you have Matt Zuccarello who's like pushing, he's what 30. He's gonna be how old?
Matt
I think he's
Zuccarello
like
is going to
35
be
right
30.
now.
He's 34.
He's gonna be 35 then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, how long could that keep up? Kevin Fiala. I mean, Kevin Fiala is gonna hopefully resign next year,
But
Yeah,
like,
because
I'm gonna
he's
get
a
into
big
that
part of the
actually.
team. But you got a lot of the average age group here is like 20, 28. A lot of these guys are, it's like it's a mid tier team that has you know like guys who are in 29, between 28 and 30. Most of the team is 20, 30. So I mean, the window is pretty short unless they, like they're not really rebuilding, but they're kind of like, I would say it's more like the Ducks situation where they're a rebuilding team that is just outperforming. I would
Yeah,
say that's what they are.
and it started ever since last season where they surprised a lot of people. Karil Kaprisov destroyed all his rookie opponents to win the Calder. And you look at their depth and stuff. And if you have to compare the Minnesota Wild heading into the playoffs, I think they're going to be able to pull off what the New York Islanders did the last couple of years, where they're a well coached team that rely heavily on depth and they have that one superstar. So they had Barzell, the Islanders. Minnesota has Kaprizov. And with that being said, they're going to be able to push the limits of some teams and surprise a lot of people and probably head to the Western Conference final, where I think they would lose and fail to make the Stanley Cup finals. I think the window would be 2 to 4 years with the current team they have right now, like the Matt Zuccarello
there's
and the Dumbo, the Dumbo, the
Dumbo.
Dumba, the Spurgeon, and all those guys. But you have to also take into consideration they have guys like Marco Rossi who are going to be in the lineup by next season, in my
That's
opinion.
true.
You guys need to also take into consideration, right? You were talking about the team being successful next year. Well, I kind of agree with Chris to some extent, right? You look at their team and their roster moving forward, they're gonna have cap troubles next season.
Oh
They
yeah,
have Ryan Suter's buyout contract, which is like 6.3 million that they have to pay, and
Zach
they have
Parise too. Same
Zach
amounts.
Parise too. And so that's the biggest problem with Minnesota is that yes, they're playing well, and yes, they've been really good this season. But like he said, are they going to be able to maintain it? Because if with this cap trouble, it kind of means that they're kind of stuck. They can't really go and sign guys. They can't really go and trade for guys to improve their team and whatever. They can, but it's not going to be as much as they would like. And so those buyouts of Ryan Suter and Zach Parise are going to hurt them in the long run. And that's going to be the biggest problem with Minnesota. But if they play the way they played this season, and if they're coached well and they've got a system that keeps on working, and obviously Kaprizov keeps playing lights out, that definitely they've got a chance, right? But they're a team that I think they're going to go to the playoffs and they're going to surprise some people. I don't know how far they're going to go, but I don't really care about how far they're going to go because at the end of the day, I think they're a team that's been very impressive and they're fun to watch. They're really, really fun to watch. If you
They
watch
are.
Minnesota Wild, they are absolutely fun to watch. And for years, they were kind of that boring team that nobody really knew. They didn't know what their identity was. They really didn't know like what the problem was there in Minnesota. And this season, like they're super fun. And obviously that helps having Kaprizov there. But just in general, they're a team that, they've got great goaltending. Their defense is fantastic. They're one of the best offensive teams in the league in terms of goal scoring. which is surprising, but it goes to show you how much depth they have. And I'm excited to see what trade targets they go for in the trade deadline because I think they'll be players. I think they will be, and I think they're going to make some big moves to try to bolster their team. I do.
They definitely will be big buyers at the deadline. I'm gonna get into that after. I have a couple of notes on that.
I think the manager he's gonna have to be, I call it the Moneyball strategy. For those of you that haven't watched the movie Moneyball, it's basically about a baseball team that can't afford players, so they go and find hidden gems for the cheaper players, and I feel like that's what they're trying to do. They found, John Merrill. I think is a great pickup for the price that he comes at.
Yeah.
Um,
Alex
Well, he played well. He
Goligoski.
played really well.
They added Alex Goligoski, who put up good numbers at Arizona, but then he goes to Minnesota, and he had a freaking amazing start to the season. And they're also discussing an extension for him. If I'm not mistaken, he's 36 years old, so I would
Yeah.
see maybe a 2-year deal at most with him. But getting into also other players that have been internally rumored to be moved. In November 2021, according to Mike Russo, they wanted the Minnesota Wild were looking to exchange Jordan Greenway at some point before the start of next season because he's a pending restricted free agent. So maybe when going to acquire somebody at the deadline, they could throw him in a deal. There's also um, more news to Greenway saying that he could fetch a prospect and a draft pick. So that's pretty solid for them. Um, Also, Victor Rask is someone that they've been trying to move. They put him on waivers at some point in the season as well, and maybe they could use him to try to acquire a center as well, like heading into the trade deadline. Also, December 2021, there was a lot of rumors about Fiala's role on the team diminishing because of all the debt they have on the team. So maybe there was discussions that there was a possibility of a trade being discussed. He has a 1-year deal left, which sees him getting paid 5.1 million, and maybe they could use him as well to get an established center that could
well,
sign
he's
long
also a
term.
RFA though.
Yeah, he is an RFA as well.
Yeah.
So those are the three guys that have been part of like trade rumors from the start of the season. Fiala is the one that's unlikely for me because he's really stepped it up ever since the news came out about him possibly being traded. But Victor Rask and Greenway are two candidates to be traded in some package deal to acquire a center. I'm going to talk about the potential targets after,
Well,
but I think Goligoski deserves the extension. It's not going to be a crazy extension, probably something in between 2.5 mil to like 3.5 mil,
yeah,
nothing over that. He's going
on
to
a
sign
2-year deal
like
or
a
something.
2-year deal or something like that. But yeah, it's crazy how Minnesota's willing to trade some of their players on their roster right now to improve, opposed to just trading away prospects or picks. So that's pretty interesting to see
Well,
as a team that's supposed to be buyers at the deadline.
Well, what I find interesting, right, and you brought up Jordan Greenway and you brought up Victor Rask. Um, I don't like maybe obviously that post was in November that happened, right? Now, the thing is for me, you look at Minnesota and how well they've done since then. There may be a situation where they don't move those guys, but even if they do, right? Let's say they decide, you know what, we're going to move Jordan Greenway. Well, they've got Matt Boldy coming up, and Boldy's been really, really good in the AHL, and he's played really good. And when he's got called up to the NHL, he's looked good as well. And so I think Minnesota can afford to trade someone on their roster without really jeopardizing their success. Because I think as much as Greenway brings a physical presence, he's a big guy, he plays a big game, whatever. He's a guy that's replaceable. And the other one too in Victor Rask. Victor Rask is an interesting one, right? He's been on waivers, but he also has 11 points in 24 games this season, which isn't fantastic for a guy getting paid $4 million, but it's not horrible either. And he's still, playing at a decent level. He's still getting points, whatever. If they do make a trade, I could see a situation where they just try to move on from that contract altogether. But even if they don't, Marco Rossi is a guy that they can bring up as well that can play those minutes and help the team out. So what I love about Minnesota is they can afford to trade those guys and still have guys in the system that can replace them without any fail, without any worry or whatever, because they've got those pieces that can do it. Especially Matt Boldy. I watched Matt Boldy play a few games in the NHL this season, and he's looked good. He's looked really, really good.
Yeah, he's playing
Um,
third line minutes as of right now, and deservedly so, to be
yeah, he's
honest.
playing really well, and I'm impressed to see what he's going to do moving forward. But he's a guy that I think has really stepped up, not only in the AHL but in the NHL too. And there's another one that people haven't really talked about that could potentially get signed maybe after the Olympics, and that's Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl's been in the AHL for the Minnesota affiliate team. He's played really, really well there. Obviously, there's rumors about him potentially going to the Olympics, but I could see a
He's already
situation
been
where,
named. He's already
yeah,
been named to go.
he's already
He's
been named
probably
to
going
go
to be
to
the
the,
captain, to be honest.
yeah.
I mean, he
And
deserves to.
so
Look at his career. So
yeah, so what's interesting about that is with Stahl being at the Olympics, if he performs really, really well, maybe Minnesota turns around and gives him a contract, and then you've got another depth guy that you can bring in that can help you on a playoff run. Because Eric Stahl was good for the Habs in the playoffs, and he's still got some hockey left in him.
yeah, this would definitely be his last year, to be
Yeah,
honest. I don't see him playing past this season. But just wanted to add that Rossi and Boldy are untouchables. They're off the table in
yeah,
any
Oh
trade
yeah.
moving forward.
of course.
But two names prospects that are have been rumored to be on the block if needed to, if it had to come to that where they're gonna get an established center. Whether if it was somebody that was going to be a rental or someone that was going to play past the season for the Minnesota Wild, Kalen Addison and Adam Beckman are potential prospects that could be on the move and part of a package deal for a center. I don't think the Minnesota Wild are really going to target defense because their depth is fantastic. Bottom six forwards as well. They have so many of those. I think they're really targeting a center. Yes, Eriksson Ek has been solid. You have Ryan Hartman, who's really stepped it up from since he transitioned from a winger to a center, but still they need someone that's established. You know, Ryan Hartman, this is his first season, I think, playing as an established center. Imagine him going into the playoffs. Like that's a whole different story. Eriksson Ek, second consecutive season where he's playing solid, but he needs someone behind them that has veteran experience to help him out. Last thing I was gonna say before mentioning their potential trade targets at center. What I like about the Minnesota Wild is that they get scoring from every single line and even their
Yeah.
defensive lines too. They have so much depth, and I love that about the Minnesota Wild. It reminds me of the Habs playoff run last year. It reminds me of the Islanders playoff run last year. Two teams that heavily relied on all four lines and all three defensive lines to really get it done, and they get scoring from every single line. So,
And they're
um,
getting goaltending too.
yeah, Cam Talbot, ever since going to Minnesota, really picked up his game too. He's been playing his best hockey since he did with the Edmonton Oilers. So that's
Yeah.
another honorable mention about this.
Kakinen too's played
Yeah,
really well.
Kakinen's playing well too. So so just wanted to add that. I think it's really exciting for Minnesota fans to see. I think this is their best team on paper. Um, I don't know. I don't know about ever, like, but probably since the Marian Gaborik days and the Miko Koivu days. But this is definitely an exciting team to watch heading into this year's playoffs, and I think they're a dark horse to win the Stanley Cup. So potential trade targets, people that have been rumored to be on the trade block and have been linked to the Minnesota Wild. We have Claude Giroux, Max Domi, Joe Pavelski, and Thomas Hurdle. And Joe Pavelski, he's only going to be moved, in my opinion, if Dallas fails to make a playoff um, push, and if he doesn't want to sign an extension with them, and he's like, you know what, I want a cup run, so trade me to a team that actually has a chance of winning a Stanley Cup. And Thomas Hurdle, it's really up to the Sharks to sign him to an extension, which I think it would be stupid not to because of how well he's played with Timo Meyer this season. And those are two guys that you want leading your rebuild. Um, so,
Yeah.
I really hope that gets signed too. But Joe Pavelski and Thomas Hurdle are definitely the two most unlikely candidates, but still names to mention because you never know what can happen. But for me, it's really Claude Giroux and Max Domi that would really fit the Minnesota Wild's system.
I mean, I like Max Domi. He's played okay this season in Columbus. I think if Columbus is willing to move him, which I've heard that they are, um, I could see a situation where that works. And I think the reason why it works is because, hey, he's got a year left, so it's a rental. If he sucks, you don't have to sign him. but at the same time, he's going to help you in your playoff run. And he's a guy that can play on the power play. He's a guy that can play on the top six. You know what you get with Max Domi, and I think he could really help the Minnesota Wild out. But another one that's the interesting one, and the one that I think could definitely happen, is Claude Giroux. Philly, we know that there's rumors about potentially Philly wanting to move him, and you know him potentially waiving and whatever. I could see him waiving for Minnesota, and the reason why I could is because Minnesota's got a nice and up and coming team. Yes, Giroux makes a lot of money, but it's money that it's the end of the season now, so it's not going to be that much. And the other thing is too, he's playing fantastic, and I can imagine a line on Minnesota where it's Zuccarello, Kaprizov, and Giroux, and then your second line you've got Joel Eriksson Ek playing with two other wingers like Hartman or Greenway or Fiala, and that's a really good top six after that because you really got two lines that can really do it. Giroux's been really good this season, so I could definitely see that one happening too. And obviously Philly's going to look for prospects. The problem is I don't know what the asking price is for Philly that Minnesota's going to have to match without giving up one of Rossi or Boldy, in my opinion. But I mean, even at that, I think Minnesota is a team that should definitely be players for those guys, for Giroux, for Domi, and any other center too that they come across. Chris?
Uh, out of the two that I see most likely happening, I do see between Domi and Giroux. Now, from a GM perspective, if I were their GM, I would obviously go with Max Domi. I mean, he's the younger guy; he could be there for a longer period of time, and I don't see him getting paid over 5 million, 5.5 million next season. And he gets, he's not scared to fight. He's not scared to go and hit some guys. And I think him and Karil Kaprisov, it would be really cool. That maybe they'll come up with like a nickname like the Wild Bros or something like that. I feel like that would be something cool to see. And it makes your team younger. Claude Giroux, yeah, he's an elite player, but it's something that this team already has. They have guys that are really good, but they're also older. And I think the team needs to get younger. And I think Max Domi would be a solid add, especially that if ever both of these guys, if ever they already have good centers, they could always go to the wing. You know.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
God,
agree.
Luca, what was going on there?
Sorry,
You made it seem as
no,
if you were reacting to the Evander Kane signing or something. Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
no, it's not that. It's just woke up and I'm a bit tired there, but it's all good. It's all
That's okay.
good. No
So
issues.
yeah, so again, Pavelski and Hurdle unlikely, but you never know what could happen heading towards the trade deadline. I'm not gonna really get into that.
Well, listen, for Pavelski, I don't see that happening. I feel like
Yeah,
they
I don't
might
see it
they,
either.
they, they, they might ship him to a more serious contender. I think that would be the more realistic way that he gets traded. And for Hurdle, I really don't see them giving up a lot of their assets to get him, especially at his age. If he was like 25 or 26, I would see it. But now he's going to be what, 29. He's going to be
Yeah.
also like, a couple years left of him. I mean, it's not worth it. Max Domi would probably be the most solid target to get for rental and long term. And if you really think that this year you got a chance and he might not sign the year after that, I would see Claude Giroux coming as well.
So I'm just gonna like do a little assessment for all four players. Pavelski, I feel like he's at a point in his career where maybe he wants to finish his career in Dallas, even though they don't have a chance at winning a cup. Because I think on paper this is like their last chance. You have Radulov, who's consistently injured. Sege and Ben are not the players they used to be. Yes, you have Robertson and Hintz playing amazing, but you have Klimberg, who's also on the way out. You have Holtby connected to multiple teams. Um,
Kudobin too.
Kadobin too. He's playing in the AHL currently. It's a really weird situation in Dallas. You have a lot of young talent playing well, but you have the vet presence that's there, but they're not playing the way that they're supposed to be playing. So we'll see what happens with Pavelski. But going for a cup run is not out of the question. Hurdle, I think San Jose is going to sign him. I think they're dumb not to, so forget that. But Max Domi, concerning Max Domi, like Chris was saying, young player, fits the Minnesota system right now, and that's true because you look at guys like Ryan Hartman, you look at guys at Jordan Greenway, you look at Marcus Foligno, how they've how they've been mediocre for most of their careers, and then they head to Minnesota. They weren't immediate um like great players at the start. It took time to develop, but like you look how they played last season and this season, they really stepped it up. And I think Max Domi needs yet again a change of scenery, but some but to a system that actually knows how to develop him and takes him seriously and surrounds him with other young players. So going to Minnesota, I think is gonna really help his game. And I think he's going to find consistency there. And I think he could sign an extension if he gets traded there. So I really like that concerning fit. And also, it also fills in a need at the center depth for the Minnesota Wild. But then adding a guy like Claude Giroux, more stability because you have a veteran leadership, playoff experience, and I think they also need that too because Eriksson, Ek, and Hartman don't really have that, to be honest. They're still very young, and Hartman playing center for the first time in his career consistently like this. I think it's too much to ask for him heading into
Yeah.
the playoffs, and then putting all that responsibility in Eriksson Ek, like that's just not fair to him either. So um, those are my two favorites out of the four we mentioned, and for various reasons. And no matter what happens, if they get either or, I think they're still in a good position heading into the playoffs. They're my dark horse to win the Stanley Cup. I see them getting as far as the Western Conference Finals, and we'll see what happens for the offseason with all those names that we mentioned, like Greenway, Fiala, Goligoski, if they're going to be signing extensions or they're going to be let go or possibly
Yeah.
traded before deadline. But one last question for you guys: how far do they make it, and who's your target that they sign at that they trade for? Sorry, at the trade deadline this year.
I think they're going to be a team, maybe second round. I would say second round. Maybe they're probably going to go as far, maybe third, but we'll see depending on how well they impress. Um, Trade targets. You actually didn't talk about it, and I know that they have a lot of depth, but I think this guy is a playoff performer, and I think he can really help them. Um, at the same time, I'm not, there's a few guys that I think they should go after as well. That's not just a center. Jake DeBrusk is one that I think would really help their team, and it could be something to look at for them. But the other one I think is Arturi Lehkonen. And apparently, teams have been really, really interested in him. I could see a situation where he goes to Minnesota. I think he would be really, really good over there
Are they
too.
willing to pay the Blake Coleman value that apparently he's been
I
compared to,
I don't know.
which is a first round pick and a prospect, knowing
Yeah.
that you're a team that you're still relatively young,
That's a
you're not
mental
really,
amount for
and you're
Lekanen.
Yeah.
not that serious yet. You could be better within the next couple of years. This is not even like your peak yet. I think that doesn't make sense for them, to be honest.
I don't know, but I the one that I
DeBrusque
think they should.
DeBrusque makes sense because the
Yeah.
change of scenery thing, and like again with Max Domi going to a team where they really depend on young talent, and um it's a system that's based off all four lines and all three defensive lines. There's not that one player that carries. They really have everything that's spread out for them. So I think that's more
Yeah.
likely than Lekanen.
I see them. Listen, it depends who they face. It all depends on the opponent. I could see them getting knocked out of the first round, or I could see them make. Honestly, even with the moves that if they either get Max Domi or Claude Giroux, I see them at best going to the second round.
Okay, so I guess I
Okay.
have the highest hopes for them then.
Yeah, I guess you do.
But I just wanted to say once again to our viewers, thank you so much for helping us on our journey to hit 1K. Let's actually make that a reality instead of a fantasy. So that's going to be
Yeah.
awesome to see. Um, like again, we have a couple of guests in mind. A couple of them have been confirmed, but that's a surprise, and you're going to find out when we set up our videos for the following weeks. We're going to be talking about Jake DeBrusk this week because the Rangers have inquired about him. So that's interesting news right there. Things are going to start heating up towards the trade deadline. Don't forget to go check out our other episodes of Why They So Good. Also, check out other episodes of Why They So Bad. That's an interesting series as well to watch and to hear our takes. Also, if you're interested in trade rumors, we have a playlist already started. We're going to be continuing that as we get to the trade deadline. But for now, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and if there's any Minnesota fans, we want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If there's anything that you disagree with, or there's things we haven't mentioned, or maybe there's things that you want us to talk about next time, let us know in the comment section below. And thank you so much, guys. Until the next one.